The great thing about using the Wilton tip to ice your cake is it has the perfect amount of icing on the side of the cake for the crumbs not to come through. So there's no need to do a crumb coat. Hey y'all, it's Tammy with Cake Lessons, and today we're going to learn how to ice a cake the right way. You're going to need a board to put your cake on. A turntable is nice as well. We'll put a link on the post to show you how to get a turntable like this. For years I didn't have a nice one like this. I just used a Lazy Susan, and it's a lot harder, especially if you're learning how to do it. I suggest you get one of these. They're a lot cheaper if you get them through us than like going to Michael's or somewhere. You're going to need a cake scraper, whether it's plastic or stainless steel, it doesn't matter. You can use a comb to comb the sides of your cake with, that's optional. You're going to need a spatula. I prefer this type. Other people prefer this type. It's totally up to you what you want to use, but I prefer this one. And of course you're going to need cake, preferably frozen. I would recommend that you make your layers. This is going to be a layer cake demonstration. Make your layers, wrap them up well. I just keep them on their parchment, wrap them in plastic, put them in the freezer, and then the day you're going to decorate, you're just going to get them out and unwrap them still frozen, okay? It's the best way to do it. You're also going to need some really, really hot water to help smooth the cake off, and we'll get that out in a minute. So we're going to start with one layer first. These layers are my white cake layer recipe, so they're nice and flat and uniform. So I'm just going to start out by placing a little bit of icing on my board. That way your cake doesn't slide around while you're trying to ice it. I'm going to show you how to do this one this way, and then we're going to learn a different technique with a sheet cake, okay? So you just place your cake in the center of your board, and then I just use my scooper type spatula that's more like a spoon. And we're actually going to ice this cake with pink icing. And I think I'm going to put white in between the layers. So you're just going to plop some icing on top of it. And you're going to use your spatula. Now when you hold a spatula, you want to hold it so that your pointer finger rests on the flat part of the spatula so you can guide it, and you don't want to try to ice it flat like a lot of people think. You actually want to press it and put pressure on the end of the spatula and guide your icing while holding your layer with your other hand around the top of the cake. So you put more pressure on there than most people want to just barely touch it, and you're actually going to press it, you know, down pretty good to guide your icing around the top, okay? Second layer's going on. If for some reason your layer is domed, then cut the dome off with a bread knife. You don't have to worry about that if you use my recipe, because it is nice and flat. And that's what you want it to be like, okay? So put some icing on the top again. Use that finger, press it down, and guide that icing around like that. Now, since we're going to ice this with pink, I'm actually going to take off, just kind of spread this around. And I'm going to get a few crumbs in it doing that, so let's just try to bring it back into the inside of the cake a little. And we're going to put our last layer on now. Now, if we were doing a wedding cake, we would have to make sure that it was level on the top, but we're not really working with a wedding cake today. I will show you how to do that eventually, but today I'm just showing you how to ice the cake, okay? So this time, we're gonna go around and make sure that white is not gonna get in our way. I'm just kind of wiping it down. And then take your spatula where these crumbs have dropped and go around the edge and pick them up and get them off the edge so they don't get in our pink icing. Okay? Okay. Now for the pink icing. First thing you want to do is make sure you get plenty of icing on top of the cake. That way, you got plenty of icing to work with, and you don't have to worry about it making such a mess. The next thing I do is I go around to the edge, like that, and then I take my spatula. Now you can go ahead and put one thin layer on by what you've iced the top with. It's nice and fluffy. A lot of people put it on in layers. Like so. But one thing you don't want to do is have all these crumbs showing. So let's just go all the way around it, make sure we got it partially covered. And you're just gonna take your spatula, keep that finger where you had it before, and go all the way around while holding it against the cake and try to hold it level. You can tell that there's not enough icing on this bottom part, so what I'm gonna do is show my bowl. I have scraped up the crumbs and kept them right here in this one spot. And since this is not my final coating, I'm going to take this crumbly part and try to squeeze it in down at the bottom down here where I've got this crack. Okay, now we're going to try to get on that perfect coat. So I'm going to, anytime you see a crumb coming up, all right, you can tell that a crumb is coming up right there, and one of the reasons is because look, we've got cake exposed right there. I didn't get enough cake icing on that edge, so I'm just going to bring this back over to the side and make sure I get that edge better. Okay, now I'm just going to kind of flatten off the top a little with my spatula. And we're going to put on a second coat. Now this is a first real thin layer, and you don't have to do it in layers. You can just put a whole bunch on at one time and not fool with this step. But a lot of people find this step easy, to do it in 2 steps. All right, this is kind of like what you would call a crumb coat. And this is perfect for any type of cake. You're going to put ruffles on, or you're going to add a lot to the outside. You would just put on a crumb coat and get it, you know, that's pretty much, and then it's ready to decorate. But now I don't want this to be a crumb coat because this is a layer cake, and I actually want to decorate the sides, and I don't want to see the crumb and the layers. So we're going to add a second coat of icing to the sides. And so you're just going to take your spatula and put some fresh icing around the edges. And you need to make sure that you get around the bottom as well with your fresh icing, and make sure right there's some crumbs. We're going to cover that up. So you're just going to place your icing on the side and keep going with it. Try not to keep spreading it. Always keep a little bit of icing on the edge so that you don't get crumbs in it before you get your next batch on the side, or your next scoop, whatever you want to call it. Now, I just touched that and the crumb came off. There's a little bit of crumb on my spatula. So I'm actually going to take my spatula and I'm going to rub it right there so I don't get the crumb on my cake. Then I'm going to take some fresh icing. I'm going to put it here. And now we're going to finish up this crack we had. Now we're really close to the other side, so I think I can just finish up the rest of this icing with what I've got. Okay? Now, you're going to want to take, after you finish that, just take your spatula and just kind of go all the way around one time, trying to hold it flat. And if you've got any areas that aren't too level, like there for instance, you can tell my spatula didn't hit the edge. You can add a little bit of icing down here. And then I usually take my spatula at that point and I just go in from the side and try to smooth it out a little bit. Now we're going to smooth off my cake. Now, one way you can do this, if you're not experienced and you don't think you can get your cake really smooth, you can use a comb like this you can buy, and you can just use the comb and go around the cake and it makes a design. But you can see at the top, you can see my layer right here. So if you're going to do this method, you need to make sure you add a little bit of icing so that you can get that comb in there better without it making a mess and making your cake look bad. That's one way to do your sides, but I'm going to show you how I like to do mine. So I'm going to smooth this back up. These days, most people think that in order to have a smooth cake, you have to use fondant. Well, I don't really like the taste of fondant, and not many people do. So the best way to do it is use buttercream. Get you a spray bottle and spray warm water on your cake. Take your spatula. You can use your spatula. To make it smooth on the top. Okay? And on the sides as well. Now, once you start smoothing it, if you get a few crumbs somewhere, you can always patch it, okay? I'm just going to take the edge and try to make it crisp and straight. We're going to cover it up with a border anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Now I'm just going to take my spatula and go around the edge, or get you a paper towel and go around the edge and get the water off that you used to. Smooth off your cake. All right, that cake is ready to decorate. All right, I'm going to show you a very easy way to ice a cake if you're not experienced with a spatula. Get you a 16-inch Wilton featherweight cake bag. Get you a cake icer tip from made by Wilton, And I'm going to take it out of this package so that you can see it's really big. That's why you need the 16-inch bag. Okay, this is a cake icing tip. You can get these at Michael's or different places online. We might can find a link for you. When I worked at Kroger as a young cake decorator, this is what we used. This is what they had everybody use so that they would get the same amount of icing on every cake. That way the cake wasn't under iced or over iced. You're going to place your tip down in your 16-inch bag. Now once you cut this bag, this is the only thing you're going to be able to use this bag with. So go ahead and make sure that your tip can come out the end. And now you're going to put your icing in your bag. Now you can fold the top over like this. Open it up good, and you're just going to put your icing in the bag. Now today for demonstration, I'm just icing a cake pan because I don't want to waste the cake, okay, to show you how to do this. So you're going to fill it up pretty full, then you're going to take the bag. So once you fill it up, just take your hand and twist the top like this. Now you can see that the icing is going to come out the end, and you've got to give it a pretty good push. And you're going to take your layer, and it needs to be frozen, the best way to do it. And whether you're icing a round cake or a sheet cake, you are just going to go around the top of the cake. Now when I hold my bag, I like to fold the top part in because it gives me more pressure on the actual icing. Now I'm just going to go down the middle. Just get all the cracks. And now you got to really push it. I'm going to go ahead and put some more icing in it so that I can get all the way around the side. We iced all of our sheet cakes and cakes like this when I worked there. And if you're new to decorating, this is a good thing to try to do. So now we're just going to go around the edge. I got a little air in the bag when I filled it back up, okay? The turntable, the pressure from the icing coming out of the bag is actually turning the turntable. So you can make it go slower or faster, however, it depends on how much you push the icing. Now, that's it. Now all you have to do at this point is get your spray bottle. You're going to spray the cake all the way around. You can use a scraper tool. Smooth the top. Just use your bowl. You just scrape off the extra icing on your bowl. And now we're going to do the side. Now, really, you don't have to use the scraper if you don't want to. You can use a spatula. Oh, let me go ahead and spray it one more time. The water's not going to hurt it, okay? And remember, the bottom edge is going to be covered up by a border. Okay, now I'm going to take this spatula like I showed y'all earlier, and you're just going to go in from the edge, in from the edge, in from the edge, in from the edge. And every time I use a spatula, no matter if it's big or little, I put my pointer on this part of the blade. Just smooth it off. Do y'all see how easy that was using a tip? Easy, easy, easy. How to use the Wilton cake ice tip to ice a sheet cake or a layer cake. It really makes it so much simpler. So if you're new to cake decorating and you want your cake to look beautiful without having to use a roll fondant, go get you one of these tips, a 16-inch bag, and you can make your cake look gorgeous with a spray bottle and this equipment I've shown you today. Thanks for watching Cake Lessons on how to ice a cake. I hope y'all have learned your lesson.